All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Educators Without Borders, presented by School Rubric. My name is Rob Thornell, and I am currently the Chief Executive Director of Learning and Teaching in Lewisville ISD, which is a large suburb in Dallas-Fort Worth area. Much of my work and my career has revolved around mentoring instructional leaders of all types, principals and otherwise. And so I'm very pleased and excited to be the moderator this evening as we talk with some young up-and-coming principals about their experiences and their leadership roles, especially this time in a pandemic and a challenging year. But also each one of these share something in common. They're new to their role this year. And so talking about how they've done things and how they've met those challenges is going to be exciting. I'd like to welcome you, Winston McCowan Jr., the principal of Chisholm Trail High School in Fort Worth, Texas, Amanda Schmitter, who is the principal of Rayburn Elementary STEAM Academy in Grand Prairie, Texas, and Juan Manuel Galindo Morales, the secondary principal of St. Matthew's School in Bogota, Colombia. So we have a diverse group of all levels, and we're excited to have them. It's a pleasure to have all of you here today. We want to thank you for your time and taking out your busy schedules, and I'd love to give you the opportunity just to kind of introduce yourself a little bit. Winston, will you go first?
Yes. First off, thanks for having me here tonight, Dr. Thornell. My name is Winston McCowan. I am currently in my 18th year in education, my 13th in administration, and this is my first year as high school principal at Chisholm Trail High School in Eagle Mountain Saginaw ISD, which is a suburb of Fort Worth, Texas, right in the northwest area of Fort Worth, Texas.
Amanda?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Amanda Schmitter, and I am currently in Grand Prairie ISD in Texas. I have been in education for 15 years, and I am so excited that this is my first year serving as a principal. I'm really excited to be here. Thank you so much.
Juan, before you start, what's the temperature where you are?
About 24 degrees.
Oh, okay,
Celsius.
very good.
Celsius.
Oh, Celsius.
Yeah.
We're running about 24 Fahrenheit here in Texas today, which is pretty hard for us. But go ahead, Juan.
Well, thank you for having me. My name is Juan Galindo. I'm serving as the first year principal in St. Matthew's School, Bogota, Colombia. This is my 6th year as secondary principal and my 10th year in education.
Well, thank you so much. For those that have tuned in before, it's customary with Education Without Borders to field some extremely thoughtful questions for our principals today. And we've got people from all over the world tuned in to ask some questions, but we'll jump right in. Our first question is from here in Fort Worth. It's a Sarah Waterman, a teacher in Texas. So here you go.
Hi, this is Sarah Waterman from Fort Worth. As you reflect upon your first year in your new role as a campus principal, what were some surprises, good or otherwise, that were different than your preconceived notions going into this new role?
Winston, you want to take that one first?
I sure will. Thank you. That's an excellent question. And I think what took me by surprise is with my style of leadership, I'm a real personable person. And so I felt that being able to come into a new school, a new district, first off the bat, I wanted to get to know everyone. And being in a pandemic, that was very, very hard. Not being able to meet and greet my staff, get to know my students on a more personal level was really hard because of having to contact trace and doing social distancing and wearing masks. It made it very difficult to be around and get out and about and be around kids and be around my teachers. And so that was really hard for me to get to know everyone and for everyone to get to know me and know who their new leader was. And so that was one of the biggest surprises, coming into a new school, new district, and not being able to be as personable as I would have liked.
Man, you have a story with that too, don't you?
Yes, actually, I do. And I completely agree with Winston that this year has offered just some very different challenges. And, I actually joined my staff last year, 2 days before spring break. And then we went out on COVID and we did not come back. And so making those connections to finish the year virtually was extremely difficult. But it was also rewarding at the same time because really you had to think about things from a different perspective. How am I going to build relationships? How am I going to make connections? And what is this going to look like virtually? And honestly, it helped a lot because we started this year with the same platform. And so it was challenging, but it was really an interesting way and a new perspective to build relationships and get to know people.
And Juan, am I right? You haven't seen your staff either? Or very little?
Yeah, definitely. It was a challenge this year. I decided to move in the middle of the pandemic, so I moved to this new school in July. And one of the hardest things was never being able to walk the campus, talk to the teachers, get to meet them, talk to them about their impressions. Let's set up this new year. And it was definitely a challenge because I was also coming back to a school that I was part of last time about 12 or 10 or 13 years ago, but I went as a student just for some sports competition. So when I came to campus finally this year, it was a big change.
Very good. Well, thank you all for sharing that one. And I would like to share with our audience that's listening before we continue that make sure everyone, if you would like to hit subscribe or the follow button for School Rubric or Educators Without Borders, you could see some of our other episodes and things that we do, because we really are trying to connect educators around the world and talk about topics that matter for everybody. So I hope you'll do that and continue to follow us at School Rubric. Now, moving on to question 2, it also comes from an assistant principal here in Texas. Her name is Stacy Donald, and she has a good question for you.
Hi, my name is Stacy Donaldson, administrator at Chisholm Trail High School. So what I've noticed at the beginning of the year, principals have high goals and expectations to be in the classrooms more and to be an instructional leader on the campus. But as the school year progresses on, I feel like this is something that falls short. What are your tips and tricks for an administrator or an administrative team to really prioritize getting into those classrooms more and being visible as an instructional leader?
Amanda, you want to start us off that time?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And that's a great question. I think prioritizing time is something that we work on daily. But I would say definitely scheduling. Writing it down, having a plan has been tremendously helpful. Where are the areas I need to be as an instructional leader? And then how do I make sure that that goal is accomplished? There are some things that I can do at the end of the day when students are not in the building, but other times I know those kids are in classrooms and I need to be there as the instructional leader. The other piece that I think is really interesting this year is on my campus and in my district, we're able to go into classrooms in person, but also virtually. And so that really helps with making sure that you're making connections with students in your building and students at home.
Anybody want to add to that one, that instructional leadership piece?
Yeah, well, I think one of the biggest things is, as Amanda said, booking the time, kind of having a big slot in your calendar, making sure that that piece of time is kind of secret for everyone, that everyone knows that nobody can touch it, nobody can schedule a meeting over that period of time. But also is like how to get feedback to teachers after a drop-in. So I found very useful having post-it notes. So I just leave it on the door as soon as I leave. Maybe the class hasn't finished, so I just write something that I saw that was really nice on the class, and I just put it on the door so that they know that when they leave the classroom, they'll come find it and read it.
Right. And I think to echo and piggyback off of that, you have to be intentional with your time. And one big thing that I've done with my admin team is to ensure that as instructional leaders, our administrators, our APs, and our academic principal, we are getting time throughout the day to get into those classrooms, get out of the office. This is during a time of contact tracing, which I think we all are probably now professional contact tracers. But during contact tracing, that could take a lot of your time along with discipline and everything else. And so it's just making sure that we're being intentional with our time and what we're doing. and making sure that we can block off that time in our calendar to say, okay, hey, this is my day on Tuesday. I go to the classrooms. So I'll be in classrooms. And so working together with our other administrators to ensure that that administrator is on Tuesday, they're in the classrooms. And so we have to take care of what we have to do in the office while they're in the classroom.
So tell the truth. I think Stacy had a good point in her question. We all start the year, right, thinking we're going to be in classrooms all the time and do it. Could you have any tricks, or I think sharing it, put it on your calendar, make sure you do it, but any tricks to make sure you stay in the rooms, especially in the spring as things get busier?
Well, I think Amanda kind of alluded to that in the world of us doing online as well as in person, we are able to drop in on those classes, and so that is I guess sort of a hidden blessing that we have from being in this situation, that we're able to do that. But you have to be cognizant with your time due to contact tracing, that you can't stay and be in areas no longer than 15 minutes and stuff like that. And so just again, being intentional with your time and setting out your schedule for that day of what that looks like for your walkthroughs and being in those classrooms.
And I think it actually saves us on time because, instead of going from point A to point B like we would in person, we can jump in and out of classrooms a lot faster virtually. And so we can really also make connections with our students, our staff, but then also parents that are at home. They get to see that we're in those classrooms. And so I think it's really beneficial just that's been such a great thing with virtual learning.
I'm sure it helps with students too to see you a lot and be visible on the campus. So we know at the end of last year, the majority of this one, there's been some really big challenges, right? Due to the world pandemic and stuff. I want to talk to somebody now outside of Texas, if you will, but we're going to go to Juana Shari, a drama teacher in, I hope I'm saying this correctly, Guillermo Madero in Bogota, Colombia. And she has a question. Let's take a listen to what she has to say.
How have you confronted some of the challenges presented by the pandemic this year? In particular, established relationships with staff members and stakeholders?
Juan, you want to start with that one?
Yeah, sure. Well, that's definitely a challenge, honestly. You got to be very creative. You're just meeting people online and you're leading them through something. They haven't met you. They don't know who you are. They haven't talked to you. So you need to start think about, how can I build a relationship? How can I make them comfortable? How can I know their interest? So start with very basic activities. For example, the first thing I did was holding a coffee with the principal. And this allowed the parents to come in, drop in, ask me questions, know about my CV, my experience, what were my expectations for school. And I also got to know their feedback and how were they feeling about these years.
Amanda, you're nodding your head.
Yes, I agree so much with all of those things. And, I know it's something that we all struggle with, but it's just that time. Them getting to know you also getting to know them. And, like we said, it's being very intentional, but also creative during this time. And also because you're also trying to motivate people, and to inspire learning and to remind people, even during these difficult times, what is our calling? Why are we doing this? And spending time with people, though, gets them to learn a little bit about you as the leader, but also you get to learn about them. And that really helps, especially when we're working together to make great decisions for kids.
I know I've seen quite a few principals trying to do Facebook Live and things of that, even more so than maybe before. And so those are all good things as we try to learn our kids and learn all the stakeholders. Any other thoughts on that one before we move on?
Well, for example, 2 days ago, what we did was something very, very Colombian that we call a convivencia. So that's basically a session of well-being for teachers. And we sat down, we talk a little bit about how they were feeling, and we ask everyone to express their feelings and what were the main things that came to their mind when we talk about this year and the pandemic. And after that, we did a word cloud, and everyone realized everyone was expressing or feeling the same. So it really helped them to connect and say, hey, I'm not alone in this path. I'm not the only one feeling this.
Yeah,
I was about to call on you, Winston. I was going to put you on the spot. You beat me to it, but I was wondering about a high school environment and culture versus, say, what Amanda's doing with an elementary. What do you got?
Oh, I just say it's like it takes a village. And this is, I mean, there's 2,300 kids, 200 plus staff. It is a small city, but I send out a TGIF every Friday, and it's just really just, comforting and reassuring and just, coaching and just talking to my staff and just letting them know that we're in this together. Just really encouraging that, we understand what this is going on. I can empathize, but I can truly say that I have never taught in a pandemic. And so I can't say I understand, or I can't say that I can be in your shoes, because I haven't. I've never taught in a pandemic, but I do know that whatever we're going through, we'll go through together. And so them knowing that and hearing that is very comforting, and just, different activities to kind of get a pulse of the campus. My immediate supervisor gave me this amazing activity that I did with my staff, and it really went over really well. And it was called the GLP, and it's what your goal is, what you've learned, and what you plan to do moving forward. And it was really, really beneficial for our staff to see that and to partake in that. And it really showed, a closeness and a cohesiveness with our campus.
Awesome. Very, very, very cool. Well, you guys, we're having a great discussion. I'm enjoying these questions very much. I appreciate the tips you're sharing with the insights with the people that are watching. I got a very special guest coming on this next time. This is an old friend of mine that popped in here to ask a question, but her name is Dr. Belinda Neal. She's the Associate Executive Director of the Texas Elementary Principals and Supervisors Association. TEPSA is what we call it. She's been an assistant superintendent. She's been a principal herself, and she's going to jump in here and put you on the spot.
Sometimes leadership can be a very lonely position. Who do you lean on for support, guidance, and advice?
Well, that's a big one, isn't it? So let's start up here at the top screen. Amanda, you want to share with us?
I think that's huge. And I think support and guidance advice is just so important during this time, especially, being a brand new principal. I am blessed to serve in an amazing district that has so many resources and coaching and just really supports me on this journey. But I also look to other administrators. I look to principals that have been doing this a lot longer than I've been doing this, because they can offer that guidance. We've all been doing COVID for the first time, and this is new, but there are so many other valuable experiences that I've just been learning along the way. So I really look to peers that have been serving in this position. And then because that was Dr. Belinda Neal, I do have to say that it is so important to be part of your organization. I am a member of the Texas Elementary Principal and Supervisor Association, and being a part of your organization connects you to people all over the state of Texas for me. And it's networking, it's collaboration, it's a group that's supportive that you can say, what should I do in this situation? Or I need ideas, or it's a group that inspires you and motivates you. And so really just having that support in your district, reaching out to peers, and then also being part of your organization can just be so critical, because it can be a little bit lonely, but you do have such a great support system in so many ways.
Juan, what about you? What would you think?
Well, one of the biggest things for me has been having a coach, honestly. I started very young in the administration part of education, and this was thanks to a coach. I have weekly sessions with him. We talk constantly over the phone, WhatsApp, and it's a very good way to express your feelings, get an advice from someone who has been in education for many, many years. So I definitely recommend getting a mentor. Also, having a group of friends that maybe it's outside of education, it's very, very helpful. Sometimes you just talk to people that it's related to your job or related to education, and you're basically feeling the same and you're addressing it from the same perspective. But when you talk from someone from a different industry, they have a completely different view, perspective, strategies, experiences, and that's extremely helpful because you can bring that to the school that you have.
That's true.
Yes, and I echo both what Amanda and Juan said. And I'm a man of strong faith, and so I lean on my faith and a lot of prayer, because you know, like it states, it does get lonely at the top, but I have a strong family support. Both my parents are retired educators, so I lean on them. My sisters are in education, so I can get feedback from them as well. Mentors that, you know, started me in administration back 13 years ago, I still have contact with and lean on, and administrators as recent as last year that I still in contact with, along with, like what Juan stated, I have a coach that I speak with every month that has valuable insight on different perspectives. My immediate supervisor, as well as my executive leadership team that I lean on, they're very supportive. And I too am a part of an organization, a Texas Association of Secondary School Principals, TASSP, the largest principal organization in the United States that does a great job of coaching and mentoring and just guiding not only myself, but other principals, secondary principals in the state and beyond. And so it's just having those support groups and strong admin team, friends that are in administration just to lean on and let you know that, hey, especially with a lot of them, you know, being principals during a pandemic, we don't know what we don't know. And so we kind of bounce ideas off each other and kind of see, hey, what's working for you? How is this working for, you know, if this is not working for me, can y'all give me some ideas on what y'all are doing? And it really helps us along the way.
I think all of you guys made some great points. You know, Amanda and Winston, here in Texas, we are very fortunate to have TEPSA and TASSP as support organizations for our principals. Juan, I don't know if you have something like that, but, you know, I think in a way that's kind of what School Rubric and Educators Without Borders is trying to do, is create that connection and network for all of you guys and people all over the world going through these issues. So hopefully we'll. I saw a question from Twitter pop up from a Walter, and I thought it kind of went with this question, but I thought it'd be good when, you know, the what are you grateful for? What have you learned? What do you promise to do? Think about that GLP walk. Is that what you were talking about, Winston?
Yes, that's the one. Activity, and actually, that's the shout out to my immediate supervisor. But yeah, that's the activity, and it was amazing.
Very good. I wanted people to be able to see that text because I thought that was the one you were talking about. Very good.
Yes.
All right. Well, cool. Well, you know, we're talking a little bit about support and the position that we can sometimes it can be very isolating and lonely for you guys, and part of what makes the position the way it is sometimes difficult conversations and tough discussions that you have to have. We've got a question coming up from Jeff Shirk. He's a middle school and high school principal at the International School in Recife, Brazil, and he wants to talk a little bit about how you handle those tough conversations that you have to have.
Part of being a leader means that you are having tough conversations and making decisions that aren't always popular. Can you share with us some examples of tough conversations and decisions and how you approach these situations?
Who wants to take that one?
I think I can start off on this. Being high school principal and during a pandemic, there's, especially with, you know, your senior class, there are a lot of hard and difficult decisions that are having to be made that aren't really popular, especially amongst those senior parents and senior students, because, you know, we're not being able to have, you know, the traditions that these kids that were from kindergarten all the way up to this point now we're looking forward to. And so, you know, coming up with those hard decisions and those difficult conversations to let them know that, hey, you know, they ask about prom, or they ask about, you know, graduation, they asked about those different things, and you have to reply with, it's in the works, or we're looking into it, or we're planning on something, we'll get back to you. Those are those hard, difficult conversations, because you sit there and you look at these students and they're already dejected because of the circumstances that they're in now. And then you have to say, hey, you know, but, you know, I understand this is your senior year, but it's because of the, you know, the pandemic and what the situation that we're in is that we have to have those difficult conversations.
Juan, what do you think?
Yeah. Well, I can definitely relate to Winston, honestly. As a secondary principal, I'm having exactly the same issue. Having difficult conversations with seniors, they all wanting to come back to campus, but it's impossible because of classroom capacities. So I think one of the biggest things when you're having a tough conversation is recognize others' feelings. Start by saying, how are you feeling and how is the decision making you feel? Because this is a people business. And when you start recognizing that, you connect into a human level. And I can say, I understand where you're coming from, and I do really feel the same thing, but I want you to understand that this is uncertain for everyone. I'm sure that you have faced it and your feelings are real, and such as are mine. And I will try to do my best and start finding ways around, like having some mini sessions with them, having some shifts for them. So what I had to do this week, for example, that will reopen, is I had to set up shifts for my senior years. So everyone can come in, but they can only come in 2 days a week because I cannot have them all as a cohort at once. So it was very difficult. I received a lot of letters, but when you talk to parents and tell them, I understand, but please see from our perspective and put yourself in our shoes. We want to protect your kids, and we also want to give them the possibility of coming back, but it cannot be 100% both.
Let me put you all on the spot a little bit, kind of on this tough decision type thing. You all came in new to your roles this year. There had to have been something that you wanted to change right away, that either you decided to do it or you decided to wait. What does that look like? Because we're talking to a lot of aspiring administrators that are going to come into a new role and they're going to see that. So talk about that context of a tough decision with, being new and having to find out what's going on, but then also having to kind of put your stamp on it. Amanda, you're nodding your head. You got
well, and I think that's such a good question. I think for a lot of us, even coming in new, we wanted, I know in my position, I wanted to learn a lot about the culture, the climate, the traditions of the school, and make sure that I was really respecting, appreciating, and celebrating those things. Unfortunately, though, coming in this year, we've had to right away put some different systems and procedures in place when it comes to safety. And the decisions you make now in this position are a little bit different that might have been made before, because now you really look through a lens of safety and the decisions that you're making, because it is so impactful and the outcomes, could be very, are at high stakes for people and for kids and our staff and our students. And, I really like what Juan was saying about just, listening to your staff, hearing those things, and also, though, being very honest and upfront about why some of the decisions are being made right off the bat, where you're having to make some drastic changes, that you're not trying to value what wasn't in place, but some things are necessary due to safety and moving forward. And so things do look a little bit different. I think one thing that's important, though, is really including people on that decision-making process, too, and getting their input and then letting them know why, and really taking some of our obstacles this year and really turning them into opportunities. There's a lot of things that we can look at from a very negative point of view, but then we can also look at things and say, okay, so what do I do with that now? What kind of spin can we put it on and make it great for everyone? And so I think that's really important.
Anybody else on that? Being the new guy coming in? I actually got asked that question today, so that was kind of funny for me by somebody that's inspiring principal, is what do you do when you're new?
I think it's also about what's your framework, what's your vision, and what are your principles and your non-negotiables as a principal. It's like, what are you going to put in the middle? I came into a very high academic standards school, but in the end, the academic standards and curriculum was taking over student well-being. So as a leader, I had to say, we need to start balancing these two out, because for me, it's more important being able to have a well-being or being able to take care of the students and being explicit about their well-being rather than only focusing on academics. So I think that was also a great opportunity that brought us to a big discussion about what is really important at this point in time. Our standardized test results or the well-being of the student, the screen time, and it brought very, very different perspectives. So
it did. So kind of along those lines and being prepared, I think this next question is pretty interesting. It comes from Devin Johnson. He's a middle school teacher in the Dominican Republic. And part of what's interesting is he's talking a little bit about your formal preparation for being a principal and your informal preparation. So let's see what Devin has to say.
Curious to learn more about your formal and informal preparation as a principal. What was the one biggest thing you learned in your principal preparation course, and what was one thing that you learned elsewhere that has been an important aspect of your success as a principal?
And before we give Amanda a crack at that, I was going to say, I wonder what things you learned in your formal preparation that you've thrown out now already. So that might be part of it as well. But Amanda, you want to take a shot at these first?
Yes. I think you learn so much. You learn so much about documentation. You learn so much about the law. You learn so much about so many different aspects. But I think one of the most important things that you learn is that every decision that you make, kids really should come first. And you really have to have that be your focus. And so I think that is just a key. And that was one thing in preparing to be a principal and serving as an assistant principal. The decisions that we're making, why are we making them? We're making them to grow our students and to make sure that our students are achieving. One thing that I have sought out advice for now having this role is, and one thing that I think that I try to help and coach others is really, as a new administrator and as a new principal, how do you find that balance? That's the one thing I'm always seeking from my peers, because, yes, I have such a critical role as a principal and as a leader on the campus, and I'm supporting others, but I'm also a wife. I'm also a mother. I'm a daughter. I'm a sister. I'm a friend. And so it's like, how do you, and then also self-care, there's so many things. And so I would say the one thing that I was surprised in going from that formal coursework, that principal preparation, that experience, but really getting into it is thinking, okay, there are all of these things going on. I need advice on where do I find that balance? And so I just think that's a really critical piece.
Amen to that. All right.
I'm still speaking that too, just so you know.
Anybody else?
I kind of echo what Amanda was saying, that, in your classes, you learn the black and white piece, the policies, the procedures, the law, the ins and outs of the principalship, quote unquote. But when you actually get in the chair, that's when you learn the on the job type of things of the principalship, how to handle the irate or upset parents, how to deal with the situations that come up when you get a tweet that there's a bomb in the building, when you get a situation where there's a phone call and they're stating that something's going to happen. Those are the things that don't come into class. And so those are the on-the-job type situations that you kind of have to make decisions on your feet. And so those are the pieces that I think that help you, make you more well-rounded administrator when you're able to think on your feet, and when you're faced with those type of situations and you make decisions that are in the best interest of all involved. Also, to piggyback what Amanda said is that you have to have a laser focus, pay attention to every decision that you make is based on the best interest of kids. Sometimes it might not be a fan favorite of teachers, but is it in the best interest of kids? If you're doing what you're doing in the best interest of kids, then you can't go wrong.
It's a hard question. I tell this story to young principals sometimes, but my first year as a principal, first of all, I was too young and didn't know what I was doing, but I got the job. But I had actually had a staff member lose a spouse. They passed away about a month into school, and you don't know how to handle that. They don't teach you that in the class. You bring the staff together. And so those tragedies that we go through, and you guys are going through it in pandemics right now, I think are, they're really, they can bring your staff together if you handle them well, but that's those kind of things are hard. And I always remember that when I'm talking with, first year principals and administrators, talking about those kind of things. And that, and just, what do you believe? What do you really believe about instruction even can be a fun thing. We have a question from the audience I'd like to throw up for you guys, if you would, but someone in the audience tweeted out and asked us, how do you, right here, Luis did, how would you perceive the future of education and leadership in the face of technology advances, in the face of hybrid models and allowing different ways of reaching students? And I think, you guys are new to your roles on your campus. I predict high success for all of you, just because I know you, and so you're gonna be there for a while, or you're gonna move up to other things, but you're gonna be successful principals. But what do you see as the future? What's going to be next, either at your campus or beyond in education? Anybody?
Wow.
That's big, huh?
Yeah. Louise, that
like,
is
what's going to be next week? Is that a fair question?
Louise, that's a good question. I think because what we've been sort of forced into doing as districts with the hybrid models, with bringing in technology and the remote and in-person learning, is we open up another opportunity for districts and campuses to have another avenue for students to learn. There's some students that are thriving in this environment, and there's other students that are suffering in silence. And I think that with that situation, you're going to have to where you might not be able to just stop once this pandemic is over. You're not going to be able to just stop with this type of model. You might be able to phase it out, but you're having some students that would not otherwise succeed being very successful with this model.
Yeah, and
what do you see down there, Juan?
I definitely think that this came to stay. Honestly, this is not something that is going to go away. The hybrid model, online teaching, I see it as a great opportunity. I see it as a way of making classrooms international, getting connected with other teachers abroad, having your kids actually have that international experience without leaving, which is sometimes difficult for some schools. I see leadership taking a huge shift because this is a people business. This is mostly about relations. And now you need to start building that skill set of how do I build a relationship with someone through Zoom? How do I build a relationship of someone I've never seen and for whom it's very difficult to read the body language through a camera, or that the connection fails and you cannot connect with them, and all these kind of things that start getting in the middle. And at some point, that human connection is going to be required. So I think as leaders in education, we need to start looking for opportunities and actually creating opportunities to have those one-to-one connections, those human connections, because online won't make it.
Amanda?
Yeah, I completely agree. And I also think one thing it's done, though, is it has really pushed us. It's pushed our kids, it's pushed our teachers, it's pushed our staff to learn new things and be innovative. And I think that's one of the best things that has really come out of this pandemic. And I really can't see some of the virtual learning going away in the future because, like Winston said, we have students that are thriving. I mean, think about what we would not have done just in our traditional models. But now we're really pushing the boundaries and the expectations. And I think it's caused us to problem solve in different ways and become critical thinkers. And I think moving forward, like Juan said, I think it's going to connect people globally. It's going to connect students globally, and it's really going to open doors to possibilities. Sometimes when things are not working technology-wise, it can be frustrating, but in the big picture, I think it's going to make us all really stronger for our kids. And some of our kids, they're learning it faster than we are. Let's be honest. I mean, how many times are they teaching us about technology?
If I could, though, the name of your school has STEAM in it.
Yes.
How has that changed in a virtual? STEAM is such a big, it was the future of education just a couple of years ago. Now we're virtual, and it still is such a huge part, the STEAM and the STEM. What does that look like on your campus?
Yeah, and so we are a STEAM Academy. We focus on science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics. And, the things a couple of years ago that used to be cutting edge, now we have to look at it and say, okay, what does that look like differently now? Now that iPad devices are in the hands of all students, how are we going to be on this cutting edge? And one of the things that we've done is we've really incorporated a lot of the robotics piece. And we've moved into some of the things like drones and some of the other things that really take it to the next level, because now all kids having an iPad device is kind of common practice for some areas. And so it's less a cutting edge like it was a couple of years ago. So we're always looking for the latest and greatest. And I'll tell you, we do have a lot of our kids that drive that. What are kids interested in now? What do they want to learn? And how does what we're teaching them help them contribute?
Okay, that's good. Another question popped up that I think is pretty relevant, and we actually had a chat on this a couple months ago, but let's, if you don't mind, I'd like to talk to T-Test is the Texas one, Juan, but just in general, how are you helping teachers in the evaluation process? Overwhelming for teachers right now and what they do. So, are you taking it easy on them? Are you coaching them in a different way? What does it look like for that process? Thank you, Larissa, for asking that question. And Juan, do you want to start, even though you're not a T-Test guy?
Yeah. yeah. That caught me by surprise because T-Test. So I think I'm being very lenient on this evaluation process. To be honest, my main focus is well-being of students. So I'm just let's focus on that and take some of the pressure off from the evaluation. And let's just talk most about the formative process. How can we make a formative process better, and how can we give more feedback and be more accurate in what we're doing by connecting with them?
Have they responded pretty well to that?
Yes, definitely. Kids, I feel they're responding well to that. I feel kids were a little bit concerned in the beginning, to be honest, because this is a very high academic standards school. It's always in the top 10 of the country. Everyone is looking at the rankings every year, and as soon as they come out. So at the beginning, they were very concerned, and teachers as well. They were very concerned about, academic quality, results, what is going to happen. But you need to tell them, nobody knows what is going to happen. You don't know how everyone is going to be assessed. We don't even know if evaluations are going to happen in the case that we have international accreditations like IB or Cambridge or whatever that we have. So we need to calm down, and we don't know what we don't know. So let's take it from there and focus on what we can control and what we can do better for our kids in the future. And I'm sure they would learn mathematics, English, whatever they need to learn afterwards, but their well-being at this point in time, for me, is extremely important. Let's learn to take care of yourself so that you can take care of others.
Great advice. Amanda or Winston, either one of you, what about how you're taking care of your teachers in the evaluation process?
I think we take the same approach as we do with our kids, a lot of grace and patience.
A lot of grace and a lot of patience. Yeah.
A lot of grace and a lot of patience, because again, no one's ever done this. What we're doing is unprecedented. We've never taught during a pandemic. And so we do a lot of the instructional coaching pieces, do the walkthroughs, and we record our walkthroughs. I think one of the neatest thing that we do as a district is in our principal PLCs is that each campus has a AP or a principal instructional round where we go to a campus and they do the virtual walkthroughs. And so while the other principals are on maybe the Teams or Zoom watching, that principal is actually walking through their classrooms with their video, with their iPad, and they're live streaming a classroom going on. And so,
are you sure that's been taking it easy on them?
Easy, but it helps. It's the coach.
I'm teasing. Yeah.
The teachers seem to be receptive to it.
Good. No, that's good. That's
a coaching piece, and we get to see and what's working on different campuses, and then we bring that back to our campus and say, hey, this is what's working here and what's working for us, and we look and adapt to what's going to be successful for our students.
It's a high level of trust. Very good. Yeah. Amanda, you were nodding your head.
And I completely agree with Winston. And I think one thing that we have to remember is that even though we're in a pandemic, teachers still have goals. They're wanting to grow. They're wanting to get stronger for kids and for the kind of instruction that they're delivering in the classroom. They want the feedback and they want the support. And so one of the ways that we do that is going through those coaching cycles, but also making sure that they know it's not a gotcha. It's something that's transparent, and it's not about, a harsh evaluation, but it's about providing feedback, providing support, and allowing them to get the resources that they need. So even in times like this, we still, teachers still have goals, and everyone is growing, there's always that question, am I doing it right now? Since it looks so different, is this the right thing? And I think a lot of our people really want feedback.
Thank you so much. I know that's on a lot of teachers' mind, but I'm sure building the relationships and trust that you guys have will help. So we are down to, I think, the final formal question of the evening. And I'm gonna push you all three to answer this question, but it comes from Rachel Harmon, a middle school math teacher in Columbia, and she's asking a little bit about how did you land that first job? What was the preparation, and how did you go about getting it? So I'd love to hear your stories on that, if you would. Here's our question.
Hi, my name is Rachel Harmon, and I teach middle school mathematics in Cartagena, Colombia. And my question is, getting your opportunity for a school leadership role is always a challenge. What recommendations do you have for an aspiring principal to either land their first job or to prepare to be a competitive candidate for a principal role?
All right. Who wants to tell their story or give some advice?
I would like to just say, you know what, it's not a time to hold back. It's a time to show your passion. It's a time that if this is your calling and this is where you want to serve, really let that shine when you're interviewing. And, let people see your passion for kids and your passion to grow and to just lead others. And I think that a lot of times as educators, we don't want to we celebrate the learning of so many others, but you really have to just show people your passion, show them the love in your heart for kids, why we do this. And I think that's critical in landing your first principal position.
I think I can.
Oh, Winston, go ahead.
I can say that if you're an assistant principal and you're aspiring to be in this chair, first and foremost, your principal needs to know that. Because I think that that's really important to get that support and that coaching and that guidance from your principal. That way that they can help you grow and they can help you do some of the things that you need to do to be in this position. I have been afforded to be around a lot of amazing leaders and coaches, and they have showed me the ropes on what that looks like to sit in this chair and to lead a campus and the ins and outs of the principalship. Also, do your homework. If you have the passion and drive to be a principal in a certain district or in a certain school, do your homework on that community, on that school, on that environment. Look at the data, look at the trends that you've seen in the last 5 years and things that you can improve on if you were in that chair. Do your homework and get an understanding of the ins and outs of that school, all the way from wearing the school colors when you go into the interview, just to let them know that you are in when you go in to do that interview. And so it's just really important to just go in, do what you have to do to ensure that you reflect as like you're the only candidate that's interviewing for that job. You go in there and you say, I'm the person, this is me, this is how it is, I have the information here, I'm ready for this job, where do I sign? And that's how you have to have that approach.
Yeah, and definitely, I mean, don't ever be shy to apply to a job. Many of the people who's aspiring for a principal position is, I'm not prepared, I don't have the experience, I'm very afraid of jumping into that and applying to that. Well, don't be. Just go apply. You'll get the opportunity to have an interview. You will get a lot of feedback. Trust me, even though I'm a very young principal, I had a lot of interviews that didn't go the way I wanted them to be, but it was very, very, very good because they gave me feedback. They were, Juan, this is what we're looking for. This is what we like from you. This is what we're missing. This is something that you may want to do to prepare yourself better. Also, I very agree with Winston. Do your homework. Start learning about leadership positions. And for me, it was not only about educational leadership, but also leadership in general, in a general view and general perspective. Not only focus on education, because you can bring so many other lessons from different industries to a school and to an educational system. And that can differentiate you a lot.
Sure. Well, I've had the opportunity to interview and hire quite a few assistant principals and principals in my time. And some advice that I give, the very first one I tell them is, I'm going to call your principal and ask about you. So have a good relationship. And Winston mentioned the principal, but that's the first person I'm going to call is your principal. Other things I encourage people to do if they're teacher leaders, and get involved in the district, be on a committee, do things. And when you're there, be positive. You never know who you're sitting next to. So I think those things are important, the image you portray. And lastly, when you say go in the interview, like Juan said, go in there and be bold, be passionate, and be yourself, because you're going to be yourself once you get the job. Right. So they need to know who they're picking. So do that for sure. Guys, it's been a great conversation tonight. I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed listening to your stories and getting to know you a little bit better. I really appreciate it. I'd like to thank our audience out there, everybody that's tuned in to Educators Without Borders. I hope that you'll see some of our other chats as we continue to grow this network and build it. And I just, again, can't appreciate you enough. To Winston, Amanda, and Juan, thank you for your time. Your staffs are very lucky. I've seen several comments of some of your staff members talking about what great principals you are, and I have no doubt that that's the case. But we really appreciate you taking time out of your schedules to share with other leaders around the world today. So I wish you the best of luck going forward for the remainder of this school year and beyond. Have a wonderful evening, everybody, and thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for watching School Rubrics Educators Without Borders. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, where we highlight voices and perspectives of educational leaders across the globe. To stay in the know with our latest upcoming panels, interviews, tutorials, and more, make sure that you follow us on social media or visit us at schoolrubric.com. Thank you.